Hello, this is part 3 of Unit 1, AP Human Geography. Now, I'll be honest with you, some of this stuff I don't quite get, but I promise you, any multiple choice I get, I will show it to you. And if there aren't any challenging questions on it, then we just move on and get on the stuff that we better understand, okay? So 1.4 about spatial concepts. Absolute spatial concepts include absolute and relative location. I already taught that in part 1, so that's good. Space, place, flows, I don't get that stuff. Distance decay and time-space compression, I kind of get that. And pattern, I get that. So let's take a look here. Yeah, I don't really get this. Place. So place is, how do we describe what a location looks like? What is unique about it? What is the cultural landscape? Physical artifacts that are human produced? And if a placelessness is a location without a sense of place, no distinct attributes. Okay. So we've already talked about absolute location and relative location. Toponym, I haven't seen that on the test, but it's the name of the location. And then the physical landscape, environmental features of a location includes climate, water sources, topography, soil, vegetation, elevation. So I talk about this stuff, like I talk about how like New Orleans is in a bowl. It's very humid there. They get hit by hurricanes, and they've got some issues down in New Orleans, for example. Okay. All right. We've also talked about latitude. Well, we're going to in a second. It turns out that you've got your equator here. If you are too close to the equator, you are getting a lot of direct sunlight, and that can be a problem. You would think warmer climates would produce more food, but that is not true actually. Jungles, and you get a lot of them near the equator, do not produce a lot of food. Okay? And now some civilizations have developed, but anyway, there are always exceptions, okay? Now, I do want you to be familiar with the terms clustering and dispersal. Because if I show you a dot density map, and I will, clustering simply means that the dots are closer together. Okay, so if it's people, or, then that means that the location is a city if they are clustered. Another use of the word would be like COVID cases or some other disease. If there is a cluster near something, then that shows you that there's an outbreak in that area. However, if it's dispersed, then it could be a rural area or just very more spread apart. Okay. All right. Another pattern would be regionalization. I don't want to really get into this now. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what you need to know. We'll talk about more regions later in this unit, okay? Maybe in the next part. Okay, take a moment and write some of this down. Distance decay is really about humans. It's not really about actual distance. It's a matter of, it simply says that the further away two places are, the fewer interactions there will be. And that can include physical barriers. If you look at India and China, there are a lot of mountains that separate them. So it's not just distance when we talk about distance decay. Also, cultural barriers like language and religion. If two countries are next to each other and they speak different languages, that is also a decay. Time-space compression has to do with technology. The fact that I can get on the internet and order like a chair or something or a ceiling fan and have it delivered to my house within a couple of weeks or a couple of days, and it was manufactured in China, for example, then the fact that I can do that in a matter of a couple of weeks is really incredible. Or I could get on a website and communicate with people almost anywhere in the world. This time-space compression means that the world is becoming a smaller place. And I don't mean that literally, but I mean that communication is faster, travel is faster. I could get on a plane and be in Korea in 12 hours. I mean, that's about how long it takes to fly to Japan. It may be 14 hours. Okay? But the fact that it didn't take months shows that there is a time-space compression. All right, so summarize that, write down what you need to. It's very vague and cerebral, I'm sorry. Moving right along. All right, now on the left, you can kind of see time-space compression here. Because the pictures show how fast people traveled. And the faster that people travel, the world is not literally, but figuratively getting smaller. That's kind of what I was saying earlier. Diffusion just means spread. Okay, so when we talk about cultural diffusion, we mean the spread of culture. Think about this. What is the #1 language on the internet? English. So what you're seeing is that a lot of American culture, or you may say Western culture and Western values, Western meaning Europe, United States, Canada, Western values are spreading. Okay? So I'm just talking, I guess, we're talking about clustering here, population density. If you notice that the red and the purple are the more crowded spaces, where do most people in China live? Along this coast. Not over here. It's a desert over here. Okay. And this is a pollution map, I think. Anyway. So here's an example of a GIS map where it's talking about pollution, and notice that pollution dropped during the pandemic because everyone stayed home and the factories shut down. So I guess this is talking about clustering. So if pollution is clustering around Beijing, then that shows you where the pollution is coming from. All right. So this question may not have anything to do with what I just taught you, but go ahead and do it. The answer is census surveys. Okay, because remember, census tells you how old people are and where they live, and their income, and their race, and their religion. All right, moving right along. Okay, I'm not saying this is easier, but at least this is something that I understand a little better. Okay, And notice I didn't have any good questions for the last part, so that means this can't be that important. All right, so the topic here is human environmental interaction. Okay, that's the topic. So I need you to write this down. So environmental determinism is an outdated racist theory that came about during the 1800s because white people, industrialists in Europe, and maybe a little bit in America, said, why are some countries in this world prosperous and other countries are not? Why did Spain take over Mexico and South America and not the other way around? So they came up with this theory, and it does have some facts based on it, but that doesn't mean that it's a true theory. But what they said at the time was that if your geography sucks, you're screwed. So if you are in South America near the equator, then and you have lots of hills and jungles and rivers, then it's going to be hard for you to feed millions of people, and it's going to be hard for you to become a prosperous country in the world. But countries, this is what the theory said. Countries in this temperate zone, this is the temperate zone. Countries that are here have better geography, and that's why countries here, including Europe and China and the United States and Canada, are going to have an easier time taking over the world than countries that are near the equator. Now, there is some truth to that, but it's just not considered. Environmental determinism is an outdated theory. It's just not very good, but I need you to know what it is because I've seen lots of questions on it. Okay? So it's bad geographic luck. It's bad luck in terms of geography. It turns out that countries like the United States and European countries have better geography, and it is easier to feed millions of people. Okay? You need to feed your pigs as much as you need to feed yourself. Okay? So, according to this outdated bad theory, the climate, the participation, the environment determines or controls what can happen in these areas. Okay? So, yes, the United States does have some bad farming land, but the United States does have a lot of good farming land as well. Look at Africa, look at Northern Africa, all that desert. If you're there, you're not going to be some great civilization. Again, that's according to environmental determinism. However, there is another theory called possibilism. Write this down. So this theory says that humans can adapt to bad geography. So if you live in a desert and you manage to create a golf course, that would be an example of possibilism. That things are possible. Wealth is possible. To thrive in bad geographical environments is possible due to human ingenuity. So building a golf course in the desert would be an example of that. Building a dam in the desert so you can have a lake and agriculture and electricity, that's an example. I'm going to give you two more examples I need you to write down. But remember, possibilism is a more modern theory that says that it is possible to have success in your civilization. So here are some islands that were built in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, in the Middle East. It's a sandbox there. So what do? They take all this sand and they build real estate into the water. So you're not just stuck with the sandbox in the United Arab Emirates. You can make something better. You can attract tourists, make a little money that way. This is the Hoover Dam, but any other major dam in the middle of a desert would do just fine. You're not just stuck in the desert. You can actually do something and make your geography better or make your situation better. So because of the Hoover Dam, you can generate electricity for Las Vegas. You can make this lake here, Lake Mead. You can, if you're in the mountains and you want to make a lot of food, you can terrace. So write this down. If you don't know what it means, write this down. Terracing is when you take a hillside or a mountainside and you create like a staircase, basically. But you can create farms on the hillside. If you don't do this, then you loosen the dirt and water it, and then gravity will take over and you get mudslides. So they did this the Inca did this in South America. They do this in Vietnam and China for rice fields. But this is terracing. And then you have something called a polder. Write this down. A polder is when you take land along the coastline, you fill it with dirt in the water. You go into the water. If the water is calm enough, you can put some dirt on it and you can create farms and real estate, even villages. You can create it into the water if the water is calm enough. That's what a polder is. This polder is in the Netherlands, in Northern Europe. I didn't know what a polder was till last year. This is new to me, okay? But it's an example of possibilism. Okay? These are polders right here. I think it's the same one. All right, so let's watch a video.
So at the center of the study of human geography is how humans interact with their environment, and this is what we call human-environmental interaction. For example, look at me right now interacting with my environment, and it's disgusting. But what's crazy is that my family produced all this trash, and then I'm going to roll it down to the street later, and some guy in a jumpsuit is going to take it away. And I'd like to believe that they're going to take it all to trash heaven, where it's going to spend eternity frolicking in open fields, world without end. Amen. But I have a sneaking suspicion that my belief is flawed, and that they're actually taking it to a giant, nasty landfill and burying it in the ground, where it will live until the sun swallows the earth. And that's insane. Like, we bury our trash in the earth? Well, yeah, that's like kind of the best idea we've had so far, but it's only one illustration of how humans interact with their environments, and that's what this video is all about. So if you're ready to get them brain cows milked, well, let's get to it. So there are three big categories of human environmental interaction that geographers study, and you need to know all of them. And by the way, if you want notes to follow along with this video and all my videos, check the link in the description. First is humans' use of natural resources, which are materials that are found in the earth that humans use for economic gain. I mean, to be fair, there are probably some resources on the earth which are just useless for humans, but for the most part, we found a way to generate prodigious amounts of boom boom from most of the earth's resources. And within this category, there are two kinds of natural resources. First, you've got renewable resources, which can be used in unlimited measure. For example, the sun is an unlimited resource that humans can use. I mean, scientists tell us it's going to burn out in like 8 billion years, but we got some time. Anyway, with technologies like solar panels, the sun's energy can be converted into electricity, and you can have as much of it as you want. Or wind is another example. Ain't no shortage of wind, and with turbines like these, wind can also be converted into electricity. The mind reals. But on the other hand, we've got non-renewable resources which can be used only in limited measure.
So renewable resources are like wind and, I would say paper is one too, because you can grow more trees. Wind is renewable, but however, non-renewable resources are stuff that once you run out, that's it. You're going to need to know those terms.
Once these are gone, they're gone. Maybe one of the most important examples here is oil. This sweet black gold is buried under the Earth's surface throughout the world, and we've figured out about 9 gajillion ways to make money off of this stuff. So not only is oil refined and used to make gasoline for our cars, but its byproducts are used to make plastics and rubber for electronics and basketballs and even your dang toothpaste, to only name a few. But the big honking problem here is that the Earth only has so much oil, and when we run out, we're donezo. But don't worry, when we no longer have oil to manufacture toothpaste, apparently some companies are now using charcoal. So, that's an option. Okay, the second major category of human environmental interaction is concerned with sustainability, which is concerned with using renewable resources in a way that they will continue to be available in the future.
All right, so sustainability is when you do something like, the best way to think about it is if you're trying to say oil is a non-renewable resource. So you want to use the least amount of oil that you can. So maybe some people think that driving an electric car is being sustainable. Sustainability is being environmental. That's the easiest way to remember it. When you're being sustainable, you're being environmental, you're considerate of the environment. So when you're using wind energy or hydroelectricity like the Hoover Dam, that is, you're not burning oil to generate electricity. So hydroelectricity, wind power, those are more sustainable than burning natural gas to generate electricity. So remember, renewable is wind and water and paper and trees. Non-renewable is like oil, because once you run out, that's it. Okay.
If we wanted to, we could use up all the non-renewable resources in our generation and create post-apocalyptic conditions for our children in which societies are ruled by burly men with necklaces filled with the teeth of their enemies, but that's generally frowned upon. No, we want to make sure that we use resources in such a way that they'll continue to be available in the future, and to accomplish this, it's often governments who make policies regulating the use of those resources. For example, one of the main concerns surrounding sustainability right now is climate change. Since the 18th century, humans have used fossil fuels like coal and oil more and more, and by burning it in our cars and our factories, greenhouse gases are released into the environment. The problem is that those gases trap heat, and the more we hurl those molecules into the air, the hotter the Earth becomes. And the hotter the Earth becomes, the more wildfires occur, the more ice caps melt and raise the sea levels. And that means concerns about climate change have led governments and international coalitions to create policies limiting carbon emissions, which will hopefully mean that the future generations can live on the Earth in peace and not, under the domination of Mr. Teeth Necklace. Okay, and the third major category of human environmental interaction geographers study concerns land use, which describes how human beings use and modify the land on which they live. And under this heading, geographers study humans' built environment, which includes everything on a piece of land that humans have built, from Zaxby's to neighborhoods to religious spaces. And what's most important to remember here is that built environments reflect and are affected by the cultural values of the people who build them. For example, the built environment in Washington, D.C. reflects the values of American government. You got 3 branches of government and 3 different buildings. And apparently we're big fans of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln. But that looks way different than the built environment of Rio de Janeiro, because Brazilians have different cultural values than Americans. And the differences between all the built environments across the world are reflections of various cultural landscapes that people create, and we'll get to that in Unit 3. Okay, so those are the concepts geographers use to study human interaction with their environment. But geographers have also established 2 frameworks of thought, which is to say theories that help them get all thinky about explaining those interactions, and you need to know both. The first theory is called environmental determinism, which argues that a people's environment determines the shape of their culture. Now, determinism was the dominant theory in the 19th and early 20th centuries during the European age of imperialism, which is to say the age when Europeans colonized nearly the whole dang world and called all the shots. And this theory helped them justify that that global takeover, and here's why. In tropical regions around the equator, food is relatively easy to grow because the climate is warm and precipitation is abundant. Therefore, Europeans, thinking along the lines of determinism, concluded that tropical cultures must be pretty lazy and underdeveloped. So hey, let's go take them over and show them how great Western culture is. Rude. Yes, very rude indeed, but here's where I tell you that determinism is no longer the prevailing theory. Today, possibilism is the dominant theory of human environmental interaction, and it argues the reverse, namely that humans, not geography, are the main determiner of their culture. In other words, possibilism says that whatever environment humans find themselves in, it offers many different possibilities for cultural development. Now, to be clear, possibilism isn't arguing that environment has no effect on cultural development, because it obviously does. It's only arguing that environment isn't the main determiner of human culture. However, it's important to understand that a people's possibilities for shaping their environment are related to their access to various technologies. So for cultures with access to many technologies, their environment plays less of a role in how their culture is formed. And for those with less access, environment plays much more of a role. All right, well, I'm getting out of this trash can.
All right, so I hope that was a good review and you learned a few new things. So let's do some questions and let's wrap up this video. Okay, according to the theory of environmental determinism, which of the following areas would have the most productive settlements? I taught it to you verbally. I didn't have you write this down. Use your process of elimination if you need to. The answer is B, temperate regions. It's hard in mountainous regions. I mean, yeah, you can terrace, but it's still not the same. Arid, in case you don't know, and you can write this down in your notes, arid means dry. So think Nevada, think Saharan desert. That's arid. Arid means dry. Tropical, I know this may be hard to believe, but tropical regions is really hard to produce food. You can't live on monkeys, coconuts, bananas, insects. I mean, insects would help, but it's much easier to be in Nebraska and live off corn, wheat, pigs, cows. It's much easier in temperate regions than it is. And then in China, rice and other things. But when you're in a tropical region, it's much harder. Okay? Okay, here we go. Which of the following is the primary assumption of environmental determinism? The answer is E. Now remember, this is the outdated theory. E sounds a bit strong, but remember, determinism isn't the greatest theory anymore. Okay? Now C, that would be more like possibilism. A, that sounds good, but human destiny is controlled by the cultural environment. That word cultural makes it wrong. Okay? All right. Anytime the answer is E, students always miss the question more often, and I understand why. Just do the best you can. All right. In descriptions of interaction between people and the environment, the term environmental determinism implies that what? All right, the answer is A. Okay, remember, A sounds a bit strong, but again, determinism is an outdated theory. Okay, all right, moving right along. Which of the following best describes the perspective of environmental determinism? Wow, I am getting really sick of this, but you know what? The fact that there are so many questions on this topic available means that you're likely to see it on the exam. So know your stuff. All right, do the question. All right, remember that I said this is an outdated theory and it's old. So the answer is C, a former scientific viewpoint. Okay. All right, moving right along. Which of the following concepts could best be explained by the theory of possibilism? So now we're talking about possibilism. The answer is modification. If you don't know what the word modification means changing. Modify means to change. Okay. All right, here we go. The answer is possibilism. The fact that you're making these huge changes, human-made changes and adaptations to the environment, that's possibilism. All right, check this out. Which of the following global trends best exemplifies the concept of sustainability? I asked you to write this down. Sustainability is, think of it as just being the most environmental. Okay, so which one of these would be the best for the environment? That's just one way of looking at it, and it's a pretty good way of looking at it. All right, the answer is B. So you're, instead of using up all the oil, you're trying to use less oil. E, decreasing slash and burn agriculture is good, but it's not the best answer because we're not saving a resource. I mean, certainly E is better for the environment, but sustainability is about using a non-renewable resource like oil so it doesn't run out. So yeah, I'm not saying this is easy, okay? But B is the best answer. All right, the concept of environmental sustainability is best explained by which of the following? All right, so which one of these is best for the environment? The answer is B. Okay, I'm not saying this is easy, but B is the best answer. Okay. All right, here we go. All right. Window screens, breezeways. Breezeway is what you make when you don't have air conditioning. Like imagine like there are a lot of patios in New Orleans, where it's really hot and humid, and you got more patios and stuff. Alabama, patios, breezeways. I don't know what the other stuff is. Window screens is a way to deal with bugs. All right, go ahead and give it a shot. The answer is C. These are all, I don't know what all of these are, but I understand screens and breezeways, so that's architecture. That's what you do when you have a list. You go with the things that you know what they are to come up with a good answer. All right, here we go. This may not be appropriate for this unit, but here we go. Which of the following best describes the data presented in the image? The answer is remote sensing. Okay, so when you're a satellite or you're an airplane taking a picture of something, that's remote sensing. It's not C because we only see a picture. We don't see like layers of information like street names and other things. All right, go ahead and do this question. I'm not saying it's easy. It's going to take you some time. Go ahead. It's just a matter of analyzing the map. I guess the reason it fits here is because it's talking about spatial concepts like clustering and dispersal and things like that. But the answer is, all right, so that's clustering because people that don't have a good education are clustered in sub-Saharan Africa. Where is sub-Saharan Africa? Maybe you don't know, and maybe that's not a fair question. But here's the Saharan Desert, and then below that is sub-Saharan Africa. If you missed it, don't worry about it, okay? You probably should have gotten it right, but I don't know. Okay. I don't want to mess with this, okay? All right. All right, that's enough for this video. Thank you very much.